My friends, June 17th, 2020, 2:42 p.m. We're taking a look at some of the situations we're dealing with here in the States and in the Pacific and Atlantic Ocean as far as the hurricane seasons go for each of those, both of which have already broken records as far as the earliest storms of the season basically ever recorded, especially in the Pacific Ocean. Really quick, we're going to talk about this low pressure system that has been just sitting basically over South Carolina, North Carolina, and now Virginia. I got some emails and some messages about this, people saying that it looked like an on-land hurricane, which it actually does. It's swirling pretty tight here, this low pressure system here. For those of you that have been following the channel, we talked about this briefly while we were still discussing the remnants of Cristobal, which was about 6 days ago when it brought that severe weather up to the Northeast, and especially Pennsylvania. Now, again, this is a low-pressure system. It was kind of locked in based on the top end of the jet stream and pressures down in the Gulf region, and that's why this thing kind of just stuck here, and that's also why we're getting this very this circular shape. It almost looks like a giant tornado or has some of the traits of a hurricane, but certainly nowhere near as strong, nowhere near as of a producer of rain or anything like that, but we do have some flash flooding warnings still going on. I pulled up radar scope right here. We actually had two in Virginia themselves, right around this area in the northeast quadrant of the low pressure system. That's usually what produces the most rain and or wind or severe weather. Not too much severe weather going on right now. Like I said, we had flash flood warnings in Virginia as early as an hour ago. Most of this took place in the last 3 or 4 days, and I did not get a chance to report on it. But this is I want to say remnants of it. It is breaking up a little bit. We could take a look on this chart again. You could see from last night how it was a little compact. If we move forward, you can kind of see it after that tight curl up we have down here in North Carolina. We could see it kind of dissipating right here, and that's also why you're seeing the weather down in the Keys and southern Florida begin to break up too, because now that's going to release and allow this all to come upwards. So we're going to be seeing some more rain in the southeast definitely over the next week. But a lot of people were asking about this low pressure system. Nothing super crazy besides the fact that it was very stationary and kind of stalled out over the Carolinas and Virginia. So we don't have too much to worry about with this. There wasn't many tornadoes or anything like that involved with it. More so just a rainmaker, which it currently is still doing. So if there's anything else we need to talk about with this, we will get onto it, but I do want to talk about the Atlantic and Pacific Oceans. And really quick here on the county-by-county statewide chart of the U.S., you can kind of see those flash flooding warnings we were just talking about. And also here is an updated Doppler radar of those areas too. So both of these flood warnings or flash flood warnings are in Virginia at the moment, again in the northeast quadrant of the low pressure system. That's usually where we see the most produced as far as rain, wind, all that stuff. It's usually in the northeast because of the counterclockwise motion in the northern hemisphere. All right, so, and with that came cooler temperatures as of now. You could see right where that low pressure system is kind of blocking out those high 70 temperatures and things like that. So that is nice, minus the rain and the wind, obviously. And here's one more shot of it too. A little bit of a Doppler radar shows the cloud cover too. Not much rain going on in North Carolina here. You would think that this would be an area that's getting hit hard, but it's really not. You can see the weather is really up in Virginia at this point, and it will continue to break apart, and a lot of cloud cover, and then we'll start seeing the precipitation and moisture down in the southern Florida area, and that'll start moving up, whether it's on the east coast of Florida or it might pull right through Florida. We'll be talking about that in the coming days. All right, and on to the Atlantic Ocean as far as invests and possible cyclones, hurricanes, things like that. We could see on the chart right now within the next 48 hours, we don't have any invests that are on the horizon, I guess you could say. There were two out here that were about less than 10%. I did watch those over the last 2 days. They came and went as expected. The conditions are just not right now, and there's a few reasons for that. One is the Bermuda Atlantic high pressure bubble that we always talk about. You could see that right here on Tropical Tidbits. This chart we use a lot. We are going to be talking about this guy over here, a potential Category 3 hurricane we might be expecting in the Pacific Ocean down by Mexico. We do talk about those here. I do want to cover the Atlantic Ocean first. So as you can see here, if I back up to current time. This will take us all the way to about 4th of July, so it does predict a lot. You don't want to really predict anything outside of 10 days. So this hurricane down here in the Pacific that we are going to see is in that range, kind of outside of it, so a lot of room for change. But what I want to show you is that we have that low pressure here that we just talked about and the Bermuda Atlantic bubble. So when we're dealing with hurricanes in the Atlantic Ocean, a lot of that comes off of Africa and then dips down over the Cape Verde Islands and then kind of swings underneath towards the Leeward Islands, which are right about here, and that's when we start talking hurricane stuff. So while we have the time in between storms, I like to sometimes explain what can aid or actually stop these storms from happening. And right now we do have a situation with Africa, and that is the Sahara Desert. Now, if you guys have followed this channel for a while, I have talked about this in the past. We always have a wave of dust and sand that comes off of Africa and follows that warm water belt that we like to call right here by the equator, and it brings that sand in the exact path that most hurricanes that are starting to form off Africa and then come down to the Cape Verde Islands. This sand can actually stop these from forming, or if it's fine enough, as in very small particles of that sand, it might actually aid in some of these storms. But as of right now, we're seeing it actually stop these storms. And I can show you a chart really quickly. Actually, it's right here. Here we go. So picture the west coast of Africa right on the border of this picture here, and you could see how dense the sand is at this moment. Now, if we think about this for a minute, the sand was not coming off this thick a couple weeks ago, and we happened to see 3 named storms in the Atlantic Ocean, which is the first time we've ever had 3 named storms this early, some even before the June 1st beginning of the hurricane season. And now we're seeing this huge plume of sand making its way all the way across the Atlantic Ocean. So this could very well be a reason why we're not seeing any of the storms that come off of Africa begin to form in that warm water belt and then make their way over to the U.S. Most of our storms we're seeing are forming right in this area of the South Caribbean, and then they shoot up into the Gulf of Mexico, which is what we've seen so far. And so far, this is what we've seen as far as the Atlantic hurricane season goes. We had Arthur in the beginning. That was the first storm we had very early, way before the season started. This was in May, and so was Bertha. And then we had Cristobal, which we just covered recently. So Arthur came up from the east side of Florida. This is when it began to be tracked as a storm, and it moved its way up to the Carolinas, did a little bit, affected a little bit of the outer banks of the Carolinas, and then went out into the Atlantic Ocean. Bertha was also small and made its way into South Carolina and then up into just about the Northeast. And then we all remember Cristobal, which we were following closely, which came in through Louisiana and then made its way all the way up the Mississippi River over to the Great Lakes, and then caused some severe weather, which we covered in the Northeast. So 3 named storms, and it's just June 17th as of right now. So we are having a little bit of a break in between these storms. They were predicted, actually the season itself was predicted to be a very active one, which I still believe will be the case. But you could see here that Arthur was May 16th, which is very early, and then Bertha was also within the month of May. And then just on the beginning, the first day of the Atlantic hurricane season, we had Cristobal, which went to the 10th. So we had plenty of time to cover that storm. We've had some money and insurance claims going out because of these storms for sure, and this will not be the end of it. These were all tropical storms. So really quickly to sum this up, as far as the Atlantic Ocean goes, the Bermuda high pressure bubble in the Atlantic, everything follows around it in a clockwise motion, even though our storms are counterclockwise. You could see the weather coming off of the west coast of Africa come underneath this way and then up into the Gulf, and then our jet stream meets that high pressure, and that's when we deal with weather in the States. So we can see that there's no real threat for tropical cyclones or anything like that, although this could change, guys. You know how quickly this stuff changes. Once we get towards the end of June and into early July, even though this is a far-off prediction, we're starting to see those heavy storms come off the west coast of Africa. Again, that could be a break in the sand. Again, that does play a significant role in the form of hurricanes, which is why most during this part of the season form in this area and they don't make it all the way across the Atlantic. So we could see some areas of concern that we're going to keep an eye on over the next couple of weeks. But what I really want to talk about now is the potential for a hurricane in the Pacific. Even though it won't really affect the U.S., it could affect parts of Mexico, and it's very interesting to look at how strong this thing gets and how quickly. All right, and on the Pacific Ocean hurricane season Wikipedia page, we could see that we've had 2 tropical depressions. One, a tropical storm, that was Tropical Storm Amanda, which was also the earliest tropical storm we've ever had in the Pacific Ocean, which is a very interesting fact. Record earliest in the Pacific. So both sides of the U.S., the Pacific side and the Atlantic, have both broken records already for the earliest storms and the amount of storms when it comes to the Atlantic Ocean being 3 by the start of hurricane season, which is very, very interesting. So with this storm, let's check this out. Now, check that out. That is 960 millibars. Now, for those of you that don't know what millibars are, that's the actual pressure within a hurricane itself. Now, I do know the date is June 30th. That's far off from the 17th, but it's interesting to see this storm and how strong it gets. We don't usually get super strong hurricanes out in this part of the Pacific Ocean, and certainly not when they come up to the north through the Baja region and then Southern California. This one does not do that, but what it does is interesting. It's kind of quick how it happens. You can see it comes off sort of near Nicaragua and then other parts of southern Mexico here, obviously on the Pacific side. So we move forward, and you can see it kind of eat up this low pressure system here. There's one here and one here. There's actually one out here, but this doesn't play a role. We got these 2 here, and then this one eats this one up, and then it kind of forms very quickly right there. It goes from 1,000 to 993 as far as pressure to 990 and all the way to 960. That is the lowest that I saw it go right there. Now, we can match that on the Saffir-Simpson scale here, which measures hurricanes. We got category 1 through 5. Now, if you take the millibars, the pressure-wise, and you look at where that number falls under, we'd be sitting right about here, between 945 and 964 if it's 960, and you match that over, that's a Category 3 storm. That could produce winds as much as 130 miles per hour. Again, it's kind of out of the way. It's not going to affect the U.S. by any means, because by the time it makes it up north, you could see it dies out quickly. That's because of the temperature of the water. We need warm water, about 80 degrees, to sustain hurricanes, and if they're powerful enough, they'll make their way up to this area, all weakening at the same time. So I just wanted to bring that to your attention, guys. We'll be keeping an eye on this area too, as it does happen in spurts down here. We get 3 and 4 hurricanes at a time, or 3 and 4 named storms, and then we get a break. So we're going to be watching both sides of the U.S. here, both sides of Mexico, rather, the Gulf and the Pacific Ocean. If you guys have any questions about what we talked about today, please feel free to email me or message me. I have some moderators watching the channel, and they get back to me as soon as possible. And we also have the Instagram and Twitter page. Or if there's anything you guys would like to see specifically, please let me know. I hope you guys all have a great day. If we have anything significant out there, I will jump on and let you know about it. Thank you all so much. I'll talk to you soon. Have a great day.